Hello, patients. Dr. Malone, I'm super excited to be back with you as we continue on our digestive series. So if you guys have been following along, you know that we've talked about many different aspects of the digestive process, and we wanted to really put some information out there about some of the misnomers with digestion. Like oftentimes people think, oh, my digestion's off, or I have difficulties with something. So it basically all comes down to my stomach or my intestines. When we talked about, absolutely not. Your mouth is an important part of the digestive process, the esophagus. So we ended, and our last conversation was talking about the stomach. So just to kind of recap, remember we start off at the mouth, we'll go through the esophagus, hit the stomach, where the stomach is then going to take that solid food, that crunched up, what we call a bolus. It's going to turn it into more liquid state, and then it gets on into the small intestine. So the small intestine is actually like super long, really. I mean, different sources will say different length, but I mean, it is an extremely like your height, essentially, right? This thing's going to be really long, and it just wraps in there. What's interesting about the small intestine, though, is that this is a vital part of your digestive process, because this is where 90% of your absorption takes place. That's right. 90% of the nutrients that you take in are absorbed in the small intestine. So while we talked about in the stomach, we do have some absorptive process that takes place in the stomach, absolutely. And we do actually in the mouth as well. But the vast majority is actually going to take place here in the small intestine. What's I think is really unique about this, though, is that it's really the most, how do I phrase it, really? It's the most underlooked at, under tested spot in the body. So, or at least, in the digestive process, because when we look at it, like think about, so if they're going to do like an endoscopy, right? So that means that they're going to basically put a tube down this direction. So they're going to get into essentially like the stomach, they can potentially see, ulcers or things like that. Or if they do a colonoscopy, they're going to go the other direction, right? Fun. Anyway, so they're going, one way or the other. But this kind of middle area doesn't really get seen. And that's the small intestine, So I believe this is really the breeding ground for a lot of different disorders and diseases and things like that. And here's what's so vitally crucial to understand about that is that essentially what I'm trying to say here is the how well the stomach works and how well the large intestine work is going to play a role in how well that small intestine gets to work as well. Because if we have deficiencies in upper digestion, it's going to cause basically like a downstream issue, right? So if the stomach's not adequately breaking down the food, now the small intestine has a lot harder of a job to do, right? And it's going to make absorption hard. And if the large intestine isn't up to par, then what can actually happen is these little I'll call them critters, for lack of a better word, can actually, creep up into the small intestine space. Yeah. So here's the thing that we should understand about the small intestine. While it does take 90% of the absorption, it does not do this process alone. Okay, this guy isn't like a loner, right? Actually, a lot of the enzymes that require for the breakdown and utilization and ultimately absorption are actually shunted over from your pancreas. So if any of you guys who are watching this are people who are like, oh, I know what she's talking about. I have pancreatitis, or I've had pancreatic issues or things like that. Absolutely. This would cause issues in your absorptive process, and ultimately can mess up and wreck your entire digestion. I think that I see probably small intestine issues have a lot more of the bloating than what people quite understand. That like upper kind of like that upper belly bloat, that like, oh, stick me with a pin, I'm done kind of thing, pop me, that sort of thing. Absolutely, small intestine all day. What we don't talk about enough, though, is that those pancreatic enzymes, as we age, do tend to just kind of decrease naturally, I guess I would call it that. I mean, I've definitely seen patients who are, well into their, 70s and 80s with no issue with really digestion for the most part. And then I've also seen patients, who are 2 or 3 years old that are wrecked digestively. But we do know that as we age, some of those digestive enzymes can become impaired. So we talked about how in the mouth, we have carbohydrate digestion primarily, right? In the stomach, we do mostly that like protein digestion. We're going to see a lot of fat digestion take place in the small intestine. It's going to have some shunting here. Liver, gallbladder is going to come in and support. We're going to see pancreatic support, but the pancreas actually sends over all three of those enzymes to break down all three of those things. This is why 90% of the absorption takes place here. So here's my thing to you. If you are and have been struggling with digestive issues for a long time, this is an area to be really considering. This is, like I said, I feel like it's under tested because it's really hard to do the testing for it. But we'll see a lot of SIBO and SIFO happening, especially when we have impairment in the upper or lower portion. So SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and SIFO is small intestinal fungal overgrowth, and very hard to test for. In the traditional sense, you definitely can get the test through, like, there's breath tests, there's stool samples, things like that. But this is something I want you guys to be considering. If you guys are having that weird belly bloat where you just feel like you almost feel like a pregnant woman, this is an area that we need to consider. This is a spot that we need to look a little bit deeper into. Okay. As far as that goes, some of my favorite things are going to be just like we talked about earlier, where we look at like those fermented foods and things of that nature to kind of help out with some of that, the digestive enzymatic process. But really, when we start looking at the small intestine, a lot of times we're going to have to do some form of, possibly purification and, more than likely digestive enzyme supplementation. And like I said, as we get older, I really start to consider this an essential part. And I honestly feel like as people age, sometimes they will eat less and less and less. These like, I get a lot of these like little ladies that come in, they're like, yeah, I just eat like this much, I'm like, oh, how are you even getting nutrients if you're only eating like, basically like half of an apple a day? And we'd be lucky if they ate an apple, right? Usually they're eating like half of an English muffin or something like that. But what I'm saying to you is oftentimes those guys are automatically going on some type of digestive enzymatic support. And that may be something that's, beneficial for you. So if you are kind of sensing, I might have some of those issues, talk with me about it. I'm really excited to bring on the next series, which I will discuss a little bit more in depth, the large intestine as well. And we just now have access to some really cool testing to be able to see whether or not you have some creepy critters, imbalances. We can do the Candida test. We can look for, parasites or what they call gut dysbiosis. We can check for that in a new test that I'm really excited about because they've made it a lot more affordable and honestly, a lot less just weird, right? Because a lot of times when you're working with fecal samples and stuff, it's just awkward, but this one's a lot better. So I'm really super excited about it. So pay attention as we head into the fall. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the digestive health and some other options that we have now for testing that. So I hope this was helpful. Please, if you remember anything from this, most of your digestion is going to take place in your small intestine. It's oftentimes underutilized. So if you have been seeing a GI doc or doing anything like that, and you keep going, why do I feel like I'm just banging my head against a wall all day long? Consider that it may be coming from the small intestine. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to talking with you guys next time. If you have any questions, of course, you can talk with me in the office about them, or you can, send us a personal message through our texting system or whatever needs to happen. Please type any comments you have below, anything that you want more info on. I'm more than happy to do a video on for you guys. All right. All right. Love you all. Have a blessed day.